Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Seattle City Council President Sarah Nelson shuts down harm reduction. Is it too little, too late? But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
A few years ago, there was a woman who was an employee of the Council of American Islamic Relations. Yes, that organization that I talk about all the time. The one that is linked to terrorist groups. The one where we don't know where all their funding comes from or where all their funding goes, which is really, really sketchy, given the fact that the Justice Department said that they were unindicted co-conspirators in the largest terror financing trial in U.S. history. So what happens? They want to sue this employee of theirs who they fired, who's now disparaging them, so they open up a lawsuit. She says, fine, no problem. You want to play that game? I want full disclosure of all your financial records, all your records, and the judge in the case said, yeah, you got to give it to her. He even called it the worst legal boomerang he's ever seen. You try suing somebody, and yeah, then they get full disclosure to all your documents. They settled rather than take the case to trial because they didn't want to reveal what was in their actual finances. Now, Governor Greg Abbott of Texas yesterday designated CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, and the Muslim Brotherhood terrorist organizations. That's not something that normally a governor does. That's something that the U.S. government does, that the feds do, that the State Department does. That's not something a governor usually does. It took everybody by surprise. Now, apparently, there's a little caveat in the Texas Constitution or some law they have, which says designated terrorist organizations cannot own land, and they're having a whole fight over some Sharia law crazies trying to buy a whole bunch of land and build these massive, massive mosques and community centers in Texas. Now, what happens immediately after this? CARE and these other organizations say, we're going to sue Governor Greg Abbott. He posted this on social media last night. That's great. The lawsuits will open the doors for all of their financial transactions and funding to all of their dealings and misdeeds. The Attorney General will have a heyday. And he's 100% right. He's like, go ahead, sue me. Go ahead, we get everything. Haven't you ever seen My Cousin Vinny? It's called full disclosure. He has to give you everything, right? That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Well, now we're finding out more and more about this group. You know, I've been talking about this group so long that I seem like I'm a broken record, that I feel like sometimes people go, oh, there goes Ari again on this group. This group is tied to the Muslim Brotherhood. And now there's a new bombshell report from Fox News that it's worse than any of us actually knew. A prominent global research center has released a report on what it says is a multi-generational campaign by the Muslim Brotherhood, a designated terrorist organization, to transform Western society from within and covertly infiltrate the United States. The 200-page report, released by the Institute for Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy on Wednesday, draws from internal Brotherhood documents, such as the 1982 Project and the 1991 Explanatory Memorandum, and makes the case that Western freedoms have been systemically leveraged to advance Islamist ideological goals as the group continues its 5-decade plan to embed itself in the United States. Time out. How does the UK look to everybody these days? Have you seen how they crack down on people for putting memes on social media, how they'll arrest you for writing things they don't like on social media, but you can rally in the streets for a terrorist organization. No problem whatsoever. The Muslim Brotherhood, an Islamist organization founded in Egypt, has gained access to government agencies, been involved in advising American civil rights policy, infiltrated educational institutions, and created a vast social media footprint. According to the report, the Muslim Brotherhood allegedly targeted U.S. government agencies for infiltration, including the State Department, Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice through career appointments and advisory roles. You remember the Muslim Brotherhood? They were the ones that Obama backed during the Arab Spring, during the uprising in Egypt. You remember all that? The report dives deep into alleged terror ties within the group, along with various funding sources from places like Qatar, while making the case that both Al-Qaeda and the Brotherhood share the strategic aim of establishing an Islamic State government by Sharia and differing only in tactics, where the Brotherhood's gradualism allows it to maintain ideological continuity with militant jihad while avoiding direct confrontation. The report calls on the United States to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, which I'm kind of wondering why it's taken so long. Quote, "We are now 50 years into the Brotherhood's 100-year plan to entrench themselves into key institutions in the United States and other Western societies, to undermine and destroy our democracy," said Dr. Charles Osher Small, founding director of ISGAP and co-author of the report. This is not simply a political movement, but a transnational, ideological project that adapts itself to Western systems while working to undermine them. The Brotherhood has learned to use the very freedoms of democracy as tools to erode it from within, exploiting the tolerance and openness of liberal societies as strategic vulnerabilities. This report lays out how and what must now be done to defend our democracy. Designation as a terrorist organization is essential to safeguarding our freedom and way of life, and we must deal with the entryist damage that has already been done. So, this follows Governor Greg Abbott's move. Abbott said, "The actions taken by the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE to support terrorism across the globe and subvert all laws through violence, intimidation, harassment are unacceptable. These radical extremists are not welcome in our state and are now prohibited from acquiring any real property interest in Texas." In a statement to Fox News, CARE, who is mentioned multiple times in the report because they're affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood, said the group consistently condemned all forms of unjust violence, including hate crimes, ethnic cleansing, genocide, and terrorism. That's not true at all. Your founding director literally said October 7th made him happy. You are literally the ones who are encouraging, your supporters are the ones who are encouraging kids to walk out of school to protest Jews. You guys are literally egging on all the stuff that's been happening on college campuses. At your dinner this year, you honored Mahmoud Khalil, who is at Columbia recruiting and acting on behalf of Hamas. Can we get real here? The report names multiple politicians as potentially advancing the Muslim Brotherhood's goals within the government. The election and re-election of congresswomen such as Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, who have openly defended positions aligned with Brotherhood perspectives on Israel, counterterrorism, and international relations, demonstrates the intersection of identity politics and Brotherhood narratives. While neither congresswoman has a documented formal affiliation with the Muslim Brotherhood, both have appeared at events organized by Brotherhood-aligned organizations, have received campaign support from Brotherhood-aligned donors, and have consistently advocated positions aligned with their objectives. The report warns that the Brotherhood's networks are not self-sustaining. They are nourished by a state that exports its worldview through funding, education, and media influence, and that the United States must act now with clarity and courage to protect both its values and its Muslim citizens from this ideological hijacking. They say that the terror designation is a positive step, but not enough, and is working on a joint declaration from dozens of scholars and policymakers calling on Congress to act on the findings of the report. Dalia Zeta, who's their Washington coordinator and co-author of the report, said, "As someone who has studied and witnessed the Brotherhood's operations firsthand, I can say with confidence this is not a theoretical threat." And we know it's not. Yesterday, we told you how organizations like the Tides Foundation were giving money to CARE so that they could pay these radical activists on the college campuses. But it's worse than that. According to a new study by the Rare Foundation, CARE California took nearly $27 million in taxpayer money, delivered a fraction of the services it was funded for, concealed millions in lobbying, falsified federal tax forms, funneled refugee funds back into its own offices, and used public grants to support Hamas-aligned activism, all while under active federal investigation. Now, remember months ago when we were working with Doge Washington to find all the waste in our budget here in Washington? We found hundreds of thousands of dollars was going to CARE locally. This $27 million was just what they were giving to California. How much are we giving locally where the same thing is happening? The 14-page investigative report by the Network Contagion Research Institute, an intelligent advocacy network, reveals that they misused, diverted, or concealed tens of millions of taxpayer dollars while simultaneously elevating Hamas-aligned activists and interfering with U.S. political processes, all under the legal protection of a 501c3. Since 2022, CARE California has taken in over $26.9 million in taxpayer funding, washed its own revenue nearly double, and yet delivered virtually none of the services it was paid to provide. By the way, locally here, it's supposed to be providing food for the needy, shelter for the needy, inside their community, outreach services, all that. You know that they're actually providing any of that? Is an audit being done here in Washington? Oh, wait, I forgot. Who's the lawyer for CARE? Bob Ferguson. Bob Ferguson took a lawsuit on behalf of CARE against the Trump administration the first time to stop the travel ban of people coming in from Iraq, Iran, Syria, Yemen, all the hot spots. Yeah, that's where we really want people coming over from, where we can't verify their identity with unfriendly governments. In just 1 year, CARE California's annual revenue skyrocketed from $9 million in 2022 to $17.4 million in 2023, doubling, driven almost entirely by taxpayer-funded grants. The growth coincides precisely with a large infusion of federal Afghanistan-related funding in California's Stop the Hate program, both of which CARE quickly converted into internal cash flow streams and political resources. Instead, millions of dollars appear to have been self-doubt, secretly redirected, or funneled into illegal lobbying and political organizing. The report also shows that CARE California manipulated its public reporting to erase entire categories of government funding, sub-grants, and related party transactions, hiding the true scale of these internal money flows from the IRS and state regulators. Despite being under federal and state investigation, the group continues to receive more public money. In June of 2025, the Trump administration approved another $10 million in federal trust fund grants for CARE, even while the DOJ and California FPPC investigations were still active. That's how CARE works. In 2021 through 2023, the U.S. awarded CARE Los Angeles $7.2 million, specifically to provide legal aid to 1,800 Afghan refugees, people fleeing Taliban after the disastrous Biden withdrawal. Except it doesn't seem like they really helped anybody. According to their own internal filings, only 177 Afghan refugees, this 9.8% of what they were funded to do, 20 Afghan naturalization applicants out of 172 total, 74 immigration applicants out of 137 total. The rest went to Mexican nationals, Chinese nationals, Russians, and Iranians, all populations explicitly prohibited by the federal grant. Many of these individuals were citizens of nations considered adversarial or high risk by U.S. intelligence assessments, which raises further national security concerns about why CARE opted to serve these groups instead of the intended Afghan populations. In total, more than 70% of all individuals served under the Afghan-only grant were not Afghan refugees, a direct violation of the federal grant terms. CARE California even provided naturalization services to 42 Mexican nationals, more than twice the number of Afghan refugees who received the same services. In other words, according to the report, Funds meant for Afghan war refugees who are allowed to come to America after helping our military were illegally used for an entirely different immigration populations, including nationals of hostile foreign governments. They also found that they were diverting $3.6 million in another money scheme. The Afghan grant required CARE California to distribute at least $5 million to approximately 40 independent service providers. Instead, they diverted the money back to its own Los Angeles office, despite the office not being a separate legal entity. It's a classic red flag for self-dealing, grant fraud, books and records falsification, conflict of interest. The diversion, was so blatant that CARE listed itself as both the grantee and the sub-grantee. No, they knew nobody was looking at these. They know nobody was checking them out at all. They also hit over $3.13 million in lobbying expenses, which means taxpayers are now funding them to lobby the government. So the money they got from the government was now being spent to lobby the government for more money. They filed false and misleading tax forms, according to the report. They also said that they received $2.6 million in Stop the Hate grants from California, but they celebrated Hamas-linked figures, promoted terrorists who called themselves martyrs, encouraged anti-Israel encampments, directed supporters to donate supplies to campus occupations, organized political agitation on campuses during ongoing federal investigations. How much more proof do you need that these guys are working against America's best interests? And yet the Trump administration has not designated them a terror group yet. The Trump administration has not formally opened the IRS investigation into their 501c3, despite multiple lawmakers writing letters asking them to do so. I'm kind of curious why this hasn't happened yet. We know they're backed by Qatar. We know they're supported by Qatar. So why haven't we seen it happen yet? Is it because we're too cozy with Qatar? This group, these documents, show that they are literally trying to take over this country from within and replace it with hostile Sharia law. And yet I don't see this administration doing anything about it. I love the Trump administration, and it can only be in so many places at one time. But I'm wondering why this isn't a higher priority for them, especially now that this report shows that they were funding illegal immigration from other hostile countries. This should be at the top of the list, not the bottom of the list. Do you think this is as big as a threat as I do? Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, more to homegrown threats, including harm reduction, which doesn't reduce harm, might actually be about to come to an end here in Seattle. We'll tell you what's happening when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. with everybody fleeing Hollywood, there's a question, is a new Hollywood going to be set up somewhere else? Seattle apparently was trying to do this, and it's not working out too well. So I've never been a fan of taxpayer funds for sports stadiums. The math never pencils out. I know it brings jobs. I know it brings revenue, but the math doesn't pencil out. If you guys can afford to spend $750 million on one player, New York Mets, you don't need the taxpayers to help foot the bill for Citi Field. I'm saying that about my own team. These things never, ever. Aren't we still paying off the Kingdome? It doesn't even exist anymore. And I'm pretty sure we are still paying off the Kingdome. So remember this summer, we told you about this crazy idea, which King County in Seattle had, to fund movie studios here in town on Harbor Island? Well, apparently the funding for this was on the chopping block, as well it should be. If the movie people can afford to spend millions of dollars making a movie, which is going to bring in millions of dollars, why are the taxpayers responsible for paying for this thing? But in typical King County fashion, just when you get excited about something, they may cut the funding for this and let the movie people pay for it. Now, instead, they're going to continue funding the Harbor Island studios after all. According to Como News, the studios at the old Fisher Flour Mill on Harbor Island were quietly part of a series of budget cutbacks that only came to light late Monday before a final full council vote. I want you to think about this for a second. When you're paying your taxes and you have to pay your higher property taxes, it's going to pay for a movie studio now. Like Seattle decided to drop $1 million of your money, saving the Cinerama. They could have found investors. There's plenty of things they could have done. Now you have a movie studio that King County is paying for. Guys, you need a green screen these days. That's basically all you need. So you have local actor and producer Nuk Sawachote, who filled the audience of the council chambers to make a final plea, has filmed multiple projects at the studio that is on land owned by King County Solid Waste and opened in 2021 to try and attract film, television, and commercial productions. It notably hosted a season of the reality show Love is Blind, and King County Creative said dozens of other projects have been filmed there too. Great. Why are we paying for it? Why can't they pay for it? If it was profitable, don't you think somebody would come along and say, you know what, I'll take this over for you guys and I'll run it and I'll charge these guys rent? If it was profitable for King County, they wouldn't need to charge rent on the thing. When the council's budget committee put together a list of cuts, it involved cutting the $1.5 million in rent payments that are required by law, according to King County Council member and budget chair Rod Dombrowski. He explained to his colleagues that the county has a requirement of paying fair market value on the rent to the solid waste division while it tries to figure out a solution for removing waste from the Cedar Hills landfill. Dombrowski said Harbor Island Studios location is a likely destination to serve as a launching point for shipping the waste out of the county. Yet even with that technical explanation, the council was visibly swayed by the testimony to keep the cameras rolling. Great. So now, while you're struggling with your property taxes, just know you are funding a movie studio. It's insane. You know what else your money's going towards? Oh, not in Seattle anymore. It's not going towards this. King County Council the other day voted against continuing to fund harm reduction. What that means is giving out crack pipes, giving out foil to drug addicts. Seattle City Council President, at least for the short term, Sarah Nelson, said this in front of the council right before the vote.
But I fail to see, however, the harm that's being reduced by distributing supplies such as pipes and foil that are used to consume deadly drugs like meth and fentanyl. There were 570 overdose deaths in Seattle last year, and 1,047 in King County overdose deaths. And for perspective, a total of 153 people died on our roads in the county in 2024. So it's absolutely shocking to me that and I think it would probably be shocking to our constituents if they knew that we are using public resources to help people get high by distributing pipes, foil with instructions on how to make it round and kind of make it a pipe.
She's pulling out a bag given out by King County Public Health right now, showing everybody what's inside of it. And this red bag on the side of it literally says King County Public Health with Martin Luther King's face on the side of it as the logo for King County or for Seattle. It's all right there.
This is like, to me, it feels like it's giving a loaded gun to somebody who's suicidal, and it sends I think a confusing signal to our constituents, because we are also spending a lot of money on overdose prevention and substance use disorder treatment, which I fully support, of course, and I think that I've led on. But just distributing these supplies runs counter to those efforts and is also, I think, cruel in and of itself. It is argued, I will say that the professionals argue that distributing these kinds of so-called safe supplies, which I, anyway, won't comment, is a strategy to forge a sense of rapport with people. And then maybe get them into treatment or something like that. That is always said, but the times that I have asked our public health colleagues, how many people, do you have any data on how many people have actually gotten into treatment that you've been interacting with, or who come and access these supplies? There's never an answer to that.
There's a lot to unpack in that clip. Let's start with the most recent thing she said, which is there's no data on how many people they get into treatment. That's because they don't get anybody into treatment. They're continuously giving out things so people can kill themselves. As Sarah Nelson said, it's like giving somebody who's suicidal a loaded gun. Harm reduction is one of these terms that has been created to make it sound okay that you're giving people the tools to kill themselves, to poison themselves with. It's not okay. It doesn't reduce harm of any kind. And the overdose deaths have been going up, which proves it. Now, the King County Council, the Seattle City Council actually voted to cut off the funding for this insanity. The question is a new council with a whole bunch of socialists and our new socialist mayor, Katie Wilson, leading the way. Are they going to restore the funding? Because I'm sure the activists are going to go bonkers as soon as they find out this happened. They probably have no idea it even happened yet. Kudos to Sarah Nelson. But I got to ask another question. You had all this data years ago. It's only gotten worse since then. You've been in office for 4 years. Maybe if you had done things like this sooner, maybe if you had a PR guy who told everybody you did things like this sooner, you wouldn't have gotten blown out in the last election. Because this is something you should have done from the beginning. How many deaths were caused by King County Public Health and Seattle taxpayer dollars funding it to give the tools for drug addicts to overdose? Beyond crazy. Absolutely beyond crazy. Speaking of crazy, when we come back, my friends, Democrats are at war with each other, and in the center of the whole mess, our very own Representative Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez. What's the fight over? We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. All those people who say Democrats never fight with each other, it's rare, but when it does happen, it's gold. And when it's somebody from our area, it's even more fun to watch. So, you have Representative Chuy Garcia. He's from Illinois. He's retiring. But he did something rather sneaky. What he did was he waited right up until the filing deadline to say that he was going to retire. Because no normal Democrat is going to challenge somebody who's been there forever, who's well-funded, so they're just not going to fill out the forms and they'll wait till he actually retires. Well, he did this so that one of his own staffers could file at the last minute and be the only Democrat in the race. This did not sit well with Representative Marie Gluesenkamp Perez. In fact, she called all of this out. This is what she said. It's a little long, but she's not wrong in what she's saying.
The woman is recognized.
Speaker, I rise today with humility, fear, and conviction.
By the way, those are Democrats cheering her.
Conviction that American citizens have a right to choose their elected representatives. Fear that my convictions will be dismissed as naive, and humility that I am as liable to deceive myself about my first duties, where my strength comes from, and to whom I owe my loyalty, as anyone else on this floor today. But it's clear to me that my responsibility as an elected representative of my community is to say loudly and consistently, humbly and with love, that no one has the right to subvert the right of the people to choose their elected representatives. I like Chuy Garcia. I think his reasons for retiring are noble. We are not here to adjudicate the character of Chuy Garcia. I'm asking the body to consider a set of facts laid before us tonight about how he chose his successor and deprived Americans the right to choose their elected representative. Moral accusations and bitterness are not going to move this country in a stronger direction, but we can't keep bringing these same broken tools to the urgent struggle of preserving our inheritance as a nation. And so with humility, I lay out the facts. 1 week before the filing deadline, Congressman Chuy Garcia filed for re-election and submitted the necessary signatures for that petition. But 3 days before the filing deadline, he also began collecting signatures for his chief of staff, who shares his last name. Just hours before the filing deadline, Representative Garcia's chief of staff submitted the paperwork to run with at least 2,500 signatures attached to it. And Chuy Garcia's signature was the very first one listed in the petition. He had at least 3 days of work that he has publicly acknowledged, where he knew that his chief was going to be running against him. And he did not communicate his intention to retire. You don't get your cake and eat it too. If you're not going to run, you don't get to choose your successor, no matter how noble the work you have done beforehand.
Exactly right. Where basically what this guy did was block the race so his own chief of staff could run instead. Crony capitalism, whatever you want to call it, that's exactly what this is. That's a subversion of democracy. I'm shocked a Democrat called it out. Now, mind you, every single Democrat stood up and condemned Perez for it. Here's a little taste of what that sounded like.
For our great friend. I mean, he has been there every day of the year, helping people, every day of the most recent years, helping people, because we know that people have been in Chicago trying to take away people's lives, taking them out of the country, people who are fine, wonderful people in the city of Chicago. I say shame on you for deciding that this is the issue that you, who have no idea about the role that Chuy Garcia has played in the city of Chicago.
Oh, give me a break. That's Representative Jan Szynkowski, who's yelling and screaming, probably worried that their little club is over. I'm actually pretty impressed with Representative Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez that she stood up and did this. Now, mind you, it does earn her some Republican points, and she's in a purple district, and she's one of the most vulnerable Republicans. So don't get, Republicans, Democrats. So don't get too excited about that. She's trying to get some credit with the other side so people will view her as bipartisan. But here's what she told CNN after this, because turns out the House ended up condemning Chuy Garcia for his actions.
You know, one of the disturbing things is that, like, immediately after the news broke about how Chuy had basically chosen a successor, I saw a lot of members congratulating him on how clever and slick it was. And I think that galvanized me more to say that this is not something to be proud of or to emulate or copy, that we have to think critically about, like, what use is it to win an election at all costs, even your own integrity, if you are in that process destroying Americans' confidence in government?
But here's something else. It's like the dominoes here in Washington. Why did Bob Ferguson serve as Attorney General for so long? Because he was waiting for Jay Inslee to move out of the way. And then Jay Inslee automatically endorses Bob Ferguson, who automatically endorses Nick Brown, who automatically, down the whole chain. That's how this dominoes system works. Gluesenkamp-Perez, I don't like her. I don't think she's very good. I can see this as clearly a political stunt, but she happens to be on the right on this issue. We're here. I'm tired of the dominoes. How about we actually have real primaries? How about we actually have real election cycles? Otherwise, it's the Democrats who are the ones subverting democracy. I hear they're the ones that don't like that very much. When we come back, your calls, your texts, plus finally, a girl who was supposed to get an award in sports that was stolen by a boy gets that award after officials tried as best as they could not to actually give it to her. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to download the KVI app so you can listen to us anywhere you go. My mom is literally listening to the show from Medellin, Colombia, getting some coffee tours down there. She's texting the show right now. Yes, literally anywhere you go, you can listen to us. Make sure you download the KVI app and get it in the App Store. On the Warrior Injury Law studio line, Steve says, hey, Ari, thank you for covering this movie studio debacle. He's talking about how King County is funding a movie studio on Harbor Island. I was angry when they talked about this on the news. I'm sure the movie industry can pay for their existence instead of using my tax dollars. Exactly right. Larry in Gig Harbor says, it's ironic that the King County Health Department's passing out drug paraphernalia, but they also produce the protocols for treatment delivered by paramedics and firefighters. I'm not super smart, but that sounds stupid. Or you're creating your own customers. It's like that Mission Impossible 2 movie, where all of a sudden you release the girl in the middle of Australia and she gives everybody the bad virus, and then you have the solution for it ready to go. That's why you bought the stock options, as a matter of fact, right? You all know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you do. From Bruce, Ari, Seattle's theory of harm reduction is insanity in its purest form. These people would try to prevent violence by gang members by giving out Glock switches and 30 round magazines, so drive-by shooters didn't have to acquire them on the streets. What's next? Coupons for Krylon to stop graffiti? Bruce always has the best texts. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Jeff in Seattle. Jeff, what's up, man?
Hey, first I should say hi, Mom, and secondly,
yes, yeah.
I should say, in case nobody's noticed, down in Soto, they have installed some curbed islands to separate the driving lane from the bike lanes, and they've also put a fluorescent sign on the end of the island to warn people not to drive up on the island. I think it's very humorous.
You know my favorite part of driving down there? It's actually in Georgetown, right near Soto, right? I don't know if you've ever been over there. 6th Avenue, off of Michigan. Right there where only trucks drive, really, right? You go to the post office over there, you go across 6th Avenue. There's a bike lane there that doesn't have a start and doesn't have an end. And I used to work in Georgetown. I was there very late at night, dropping off bounce houses, picking up event rental equipment. And the funny thing to me was there's drug addicts, zombie cyclists, we used to call them, in the middle of the night. You think they're using the bike lanes? Another waste of our taxpayer dollars, right?
Yeah, I took a picture of these islands and described it to a friend of mine, and he said, "So how many bicyclists did you see in the bike lanes?" "Oh, none. I didn't see any." But
you know, my son's friend has a great line about that. He says, the only cyclists I ever see in the bike lanes are the ones painted on the ground. That's the only, which is 100% true. So true. And you look at the amount of money they drop on these things.
Which is another great use of our tax money.
Oh, yeah. Those bike lanes where it rains 8 months out of the year here in the Pacific Northwest. Yes, please build more bike lanes. You know, at least you could do them out the way they do them near, where is it? Out in the east side, where they have the bike lanes that are actually nice and pretty and not in the middle of traffic, and people actually go to them because they're destination tourist spots. You know, we could have done that around Lake Washington Boulevard, built a little boardwalk for cheaper than whatever they spent all this money on. Jeff, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Tyler in Yakima. Tyler, what's going on?
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. I enjoy listening to you and saw a Twitter post you posted today about the Metro bus and trains and the UW study from 2023. And it concerned me because me and my kids use the transit system a ton when we're in Seattle. Mm-hmm. But after reading the study, I just feel like we paint too many broad brushes. I don't think 100% of the transit system is as described as the study. I definitely think there's a problem, but I worry when we paint such broad brushes. Being in a liberal town, liberal state, liberal city, I just feel it turns those away from our conservative values.
So that's a fair point. Let's go back to what the study actually said. It said of the samples they took, this is what they found. Those stats are from the samples they took. And it wasn't just our transit system. It was also TriMet down in Oregon. And the reason this thing was commissioned was because, I forget if it was Sound Transit or TriMet or whoever it was trying to say to their own transit operators, no, you guys won't get sick. You guys, they said afterwards they're not going to get sick from all this. Are you kidding me? Now, mind you, Tyler, I can be honest about this. Things have gotten better on the light rail. They're not great. They are infinitely better than they were when that study was done in, what was it, like 2022, 2023? Infinitely better than that. It's still not great. It's still a mass transit system. And also, I remember we had somebody on from Sound Transit talking to us about how they were replacing the seats. Because if you remember, all the seats used to be cloth, and then they put this other vinyl plasticky material down instead. You ride the light rail all the time. You would know better than I do. It's because they were having bed bug problems also. This is the problem when you don't make people pay for the light rail. This is also the problem when they didn't have security on the light rail. Now, they've gotten better about these things. It's still not where it should be. I mean, when I was at the All-Star game last year, I literally saw people doing stolen good deals on the light rail. But I would agree with you that when you speak in hyperbolic things, you're not really encouraging a lot of real discussion. Tyler, good call. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. When we come back, Democrats want to protect more sex offenders here in Washington. I kid you not. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Seattle Socialist Mayor Katie Wilson is picking her transition team, and it's about what you'd expect. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it seems like the Democrats are absolutely obsessed with sex offenders. Absolutely obsessed with sex offenders. I mean, let's remember, they want to release as many of them as are on our own pedo island Alcatraz, McNeil Island.
Washington State's McNeil Island is a beautiful long vacation destination for level 3 sex offenders. Now, Jay Inslee, Bob Ferguson, and Washington Democrats are bringing the experience to your neighborhood. Department of Corrections Tours is sending the offenders to beautiful halfway houses with no guards and no security on sprawling properties in rural residential areas. Who needs safety when you can feel good about yourself with virtue signaling? If you're asking yourself, how can I be part of the fun? Chances are you are already. No one is informing the neighbors. So look out your window and find out if you've been selected as one of the lucky recipients of a level 3 sex offender in your neighborhood. This message unfortunately not sponsored by the Department of Corrections and the Department of Social and Health Services. May the odds ever be in your favor.
Now, as much as we like to joke with that little clip there, it's not a joke. They are literally doing that. But it seems every time we turn around, they're doing something to make life better for sex offenders. It's absolutely insane. The houses that were going to have some of these sex offenders, the halfway houses, it's by dumb luck the residents found out that was happening and managed to stop it. Because citizens got involved and said, absolutely not. And these places were always near bus stops where kids were waiting for school. Well, here's the new latest one. You know those TV shows, To Catch a Predator, any of those shows, where they do, I wouldn't call it entrapment. Entrapment is illegal, but where they set up people online to lure predators so that they can find out who they are so that they're not going after some teenage kid. All right, it's like the movie Money Train. You guys have seen Money Train? Wesley Snipes, Woody Harrelson. After White Men Can't Jump, they said, we really need to put these guys back together for a movie, so they decided to make them decoy cops in the subway, where they pretend they're bums and wait for somebody to come rob them so that way they could stop other crimes. Kind of like that. So what happens? According to the Center Square, the Washington State Sentencing Guidelines Commission has voted 7-2 to 3. That means 7 in favor, 2 against, 3 abstentions, to recommend a policy to the legislature that would provide alternative sentencing for certain sex offenses that do not involve a real victim, such as those in sting operations. Oh, let's feel bad for the sex offender who's dumb enough to get caught on TV or dumb enough to get caught in a sting operation. Do you know what it takes to do a sting operation? What they do is they have a suspect in mind. Usually it's not just some FBI agent sitting there all day long, all day night, just pretending to be a teenage girl. No, they have somebody in mind and they wonder, hey, wait a second, how bad is this? Let's go see what's going on. In 2022, the SOBP submitted a report to the state legislature that argued, based on the review of research and effectiveness of treatment alternatives for individuals who commit sex offenses, as well as the lowered costs associated with diverting individuals from prison while still holding them accountable for their actions, we recommend a new treatment alternative should be created to expand treatment services to low-risk individuals who have committed certain sexual offenses. Here we go again. It doesn't matter what offense you commit, the Democrats don't want you in jail. And they have no accountability for these treatment options. So sure, it sounds nice. Well, he didn't actually do anything. That's a low-level sex offense. You still got caught in a sting by police officers. Must have been bad enough. Plus, there must have been a history of it and other things, because otherwise you never would have been on their radar for what got you caught. Among those offenses is internet sexting operations and other sex offenses with no identifiable victim. So because you actually weren't able to rape somebody, we feel bad for you. We should just release you from jail. Because the police stopped you from molesting somebody, we're going to release you from jail. Are you kidding me with this? The SOBP voted to recommend this policy in an 8-2 to 2 vote before releasing the report. These are the guys who want to release everybody. By the way, this is stuff they tee up before the next legislative cycle. This is what they do. Starting now through December, you're going to see bad idea after bad idea after bad idea. That same year, the board recommended treatment over jail time for those caught possessing child pornography, as well as removing public notice and public comment before citing and permitting less restrictive alternative facilities for violent sex offenders. Great. Let's just release all of them. Oh, wait, that's what they're doing. So for those of you who don't live in Washington, we have McNeil Island. McNeil Island is a federal penitentiary. It was repurposed years ago to become, for level 3, sex offenders, the worst of the worst, the most likely to reoffend because they can't be in society without doing awful things. So, it's a good idea. Keep them on the island. No problem. Well, the Democrats say that's awful and wrong and horrible, so they've been trying to release them from the island ever since, and they've actually been doing it. At the November 14th meeting, SOBP Chair Brad Mayhew, Brad Mayhew, holy cow, the discussions we've had back and forth about this guy, who said most of those are attempted crimes or communication with a minor, when in fact they're a detective. The research in this area was a little more spotty than it is in that related to child sexual abuse image cases. What we found is research suggests they're at a lower risk than hands-on offenders. Okay, dude, I don't know what research you're talking about. This person went there to do bad things to a kid. They went there to do bad things. He said you have a lot of people coming to this population who have very little experience with the world, and you've been coming into this population, a small percentage of people who are scary, and exactly the kind of predator you want law enforcement to be trying to catch. Exactly. Representative Lauren Davis, our new friend, who has seen the light on these insane policies that the Democrats have been pushing for years. If you missed my interview with her, where she laid everything out about how she's changed her position on a lot of this stuff, you can get it over at kvi.com. She expressed some skepticism regarding the characteristics of the average sex offender engaging in this behavior, saying that some advocates like to paint a picture that's a bunch of 20-year-olds, but that's not what the data reflects. There have been many, many people caught in these things who hold positions of power, including judges, teachers, etc., that have plenty experience with the world, so to speak. So the argument that this board is making is, they're just dumb kids who did something dumb one time. Oh, come on, that's not the case. Let me ask you this. Anybody here ever watch To Catch a Predator? Do those ever look like kids that are being caught? No, they're always in like their 40s or 50s, and you go, yup, that dude is a sex offender. Absolutely. If I had to describe a sex offender, it's that guy right there every single time. Mayhew, a defense attorney for individuals accused of sexual crimes, stop right there. We've discussed this dude before. He wants to get his own clients off the hook, so he got himself on the sentencing board so he can lower the sentences for the sex offenders. By the way, is that something you do on career day when you're a kid? Well, what do you want? I want to be a doctor. I want to be a police officer. I want to be a firefighter. And what about you, little Brad? What do you want to be? Well, I want to be an attorney for sex offenders. Come on. How do you get into that field? He responded, well, these types of sex offenders tend not to be particularly young. Wait. Hang on. You just said 2 minutes ago that they were. The clients that I represent in this area often are on the autism spectrum. They are with significant cognitive issues. You know, I know a bunch of kids with autism. None of them are sex offenders. What are you saying here? What he was saying, he says, is that the level of sophistication amongst these individuals is not based on age, but on life experience, whether they even leave their home. There's a wide range of that. Okay, so some weirdo who stays in his basement all day and for the first time ever decides to venture out to meet what he thinks is a 12-year-old girl. You're not worried about something like that? Port Angeles Police Chief Brian Smith noted there's a big difference between what we can prove versus what we know. In these cases, where there was an intent to commit a crime and a substantial step was taken, but there was not an actual victim. You guys realize what they have to do to set up these things? They have to do all the communications. They have to go to a spot. This person has to come out of their mom's basement or wherever it is. And they have to show up to a hotel room or wherever it is. That takes intent. WSGC also voted to request the legislature have SOBP come up with alternative sentencing eligibility and ineligibility criteria. Great. These are the guys we really want to trust with this. During this year's legislative session, Senator Lisa Wellman of Mercer Island sponsored Senate Bill 5312, which would reduce the sex offender registration requirement for those convicted in net nanny operations to 5 years. The bill received a public hearing in the Senate Committee on Law and Justice, but did not get to a vote. I guarantee you something like that or something similar will be back this legislative cycle. Democrats don't just let things go away. They keep bringing them back like a plague. They keep coming back and back and back. Let's see. Do we have a problem with sex offenders here in Washington? Okay, let's leave out some of the teachers we've covered for a while here. Let's leave that out. Let's go with this one. This one we talked about the other day. 29-year-old registered sex offender who fled from state supervision, was sexually exploited more than a dozen minors across Washington and Oregon, was sentenced Friday to 17 years in a federal prison. James Jake Harrison Newcomer admitted to sexually abusing multiple teens between February and April 2024 after cutting off his electronic monitoring device and disappearing from the Department of Corrections community custody in January. According to court records, he had been serving a term of state supervision following a 30-month prison sentence on 2 counts of rape of a child. His conditions for release included electronic monitoring. On January 19th, his ankle monitor lost connection when corrections officers attempted to arrest him on January 25th. He had already fled his residence. U.S. Attorney Floyd called the case every parent's worst nightmare, noting that Newcomer cut off his ankle monitor and preyed upon more than a dozen children for his own sexual gratification. He posed as a teenage boy on platforms, including Discord and Snapchat, to meet girls aged 12 to 16. He then arranged in-person encounters during which he drugged his victims or got them drunk before sexually assaulting them. He did this in King, Kitsap, Snohomish, Lewis, Clark, Thurston, and Spokane counties, as well as Woodburn, Oregon. This guy. So you want to give him a lighter sentence? Is that what it is? Because knowing you guys, you do. I mean, these are the same people who want to release the Green River Killer and everybody else. So yeah, that's exactly what they want to do. Let's not forget, there is currently another one of these sex offenders who cut off his ankle monitor, who authorities are looking for right now near Wenatchee. We did that story the other day, too. You want a lighter sentence for that guy? How about for this guy? A former Seattle resident has been sentenced to 30 years in prison for his involvement in a scheme to kidnap and sexually abuse children in Vietnam. Richard Stanley Manis Jr., age 38. Yeah, that's just a 20-year-old kid, right, who didn't know any better? Was convicted in August 2025 of 2 federal felonies related to producing child sexual abuse imagery. According to prosecutors, he conspired with a Vietnamese woman to kidnap children, record their sexual assault, and plan to travel to Vietnam for further criminal activities. The case unraveled when law enforcement in Vietnam rescued 2 young sisters kidnapped in April of 2024. The children were taken to an Airbnb rented by Manis, where his female co-conspirator carried out his directives. Messages between him and the co-conspirator documented the abuse, with images sent to Manis over the internet. He was arrested in Seattle after Vietnamese authorities alerted Homeland Security investigations. During the sentencing, the judge, Richard Jones, said about the young victims age 4 and 7. These victims were not candy in a dish for you to take out like one you liked. In that mind of a 7-year-old, you were a monster creating the pain that she suffered. Prosecutors described his actions as monstrous, noting his refusal to accept responsibility. They argued for a lengthy sentence to mitigate the threat he posed to children. People like this do not get better. That's why we have McNeil Island. These level 3 sex offenders do not get better. They are the most likely to re-offend. The treatment does not work. That's why we have McNeil Island. And instead, what happens here is the Democrats say, nah, let's release them to unsuspecting communities. We'll just put them in a house nearby and hopefully think everything will work out okay. What, you think that's the only case here? It's not bad enough we got homegrown versions of this. We got to import them too. A Mexican national who has been convicted of raping minors has been sentenced to 30 months in federal prison for unlawfully re-entering the United States after multiple prior deportations. U.S. Attorney Pete Serrano announced on Thursday that the judge handed down the maximum penalty allowed under federal sentencing guidelines to 37-year-old Jose Luis Cruz Augustin. In addition to the prison term, He was ordered 3 years of supervised release, citing his repeated illegal returns to the U.S. and his history of violence against women and minors. According to court documents, he came to the attention of federal authorities in March 2025 after he was arrested for driving under the influence, booked into Franklin County Jail. Immigration officers soon discovered he had been previously deported and had a significant criminal record in Washington state, including rape, giving alcohol to minors, more rape. I mean, it's awful, the things this guy did. I don't even want to read some of them on air. This guy's cases go all the way back to 2014. He was chased by his then ex-girlfriend in a vehicle while a child was inside. He blocked her car, dragged her out, assaulted her, and attempted to do worse to her, according to court records. He returned to the United States in 2016 and was arrested in Arizona. He was convicted of unlawful reentry, sentenced to 21 months in federal prison, then deported again in 2018. They believe he came back into the country at some point before March of 2025. But let's let all the illegal aliens stay here, right? They just want a piece of the American dream. We can leave this guy here, right? Right? Are you kidding me? Why are the Democrats trying to release all the sex offenders? There's a couple reasons. Number one, they don't believe in prisons. They don't believe in jails. They don't believe in police. They want to abolish all those things. Number two, the more scared you are, the more likely you are to vote for them more tax dollars. And they can say, well, you want to be safer, we'll spend that money on police like Bob Ferguson did this year, but that money doesn't actually have to go towards police. It's sick. It's twisted. But these are the motivations. Money. That's really the motivations. It's twisted. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, Katie Wilson has announced her transition team, and it's about as far left as you can imagine. But places like the Seattle Times are calling them a bunch of moderate business people. I'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app and subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. Remember, while you're there, to rate, subscribe, and share, so that way you and your friends never miss a minute of the show. The Washington Post has a new op-ed out saying that Katie Wilson may be even worse than Zoran Mamdani. Quote, with much of the country fixated on New York's decision to elect as a mayor a socialist with little experience, it was easy to miss the news that Seattle has done the same. Voters from coast to coast will now get to witness 2 real-time experiments in radical governance. Hang on a second. This is the Washington Post? Has it been completely taken over? Like, they're usually in my little red Maoist book of the media. Now they're in my little black book? Oh, right, their editorial board's supposed to be more conservative. Maybe even they say, no, socialism is just too much. Just too much. So you've got her campaigning on ideas that have been an absolute nightmare. So what they wrote is Wilson may be less constrained than Mamdani. Fellow progressives also toppled the incumbent president of the Seattle City Council and city attorney while picking up 2 other seats. Only 2 of the 7 council members have served more than 1 term. There are not many silver linings here, except that the country may be able to more quickly see the failures of their policies, which could prevent voters in other cities from falling for socialism. Really? Hasn't worked in Chicago. Hasn't worked in California. Hasn't worked in Los Angeles. The Post also mocked Wilson's promise of filling her cabinet with people from Black, Indigenous, Asian Pacific Islander, Latinx, Hispanic, and people of color communities, as well as of women, immigrants, refugees, 2 LGBTQIA plus communities. I don't even know what that means. I really have no idea. Quote, we're sure 2 SLGBTQIA plus Americans everywhere shed tears of joy, but it doesn't matter who she appoints if they're implementing policies that will make Seattle poorer and less safe. So who is she appointing? Today, every media outlet used words like powerhouse, experience. And I said, are you sure we're talking about people for Katie Wilson's team? Who are these people? So I started doing a little Googling. Andre Montilla will serve as her transition director. So who is this guy? Let's scroll down a little bit here. Let's read from Como News. With over 20 years of experience in public policy and community engagement, will lead the transition. He has previously supported the administrations of Seattle mayors Greg Nichols and Jenny Durkin. Oh, okay. Wow. Ringing endorsement right there. And so, if I need somebody to surrender 6 blocks of the city to deadly BLM and Antifa activists, we'll call you, dude. Quote, successful leadership is about building consensus and working across diverse groups to turn a bold vision into concrete outcomes. Wow, that sounds really professional. Too bad it hasn't worked. Are you kidding me? All right, who's the next winner here? Karen Estevan, Director of Protect 17. Let's Protect 17. Put this into the Google here. Oh, hardcore labor guys. Wait a second. So Katie Wilson, one of the first things she did was go out there and join the Starbucks lunatics protesting against the coffee giant. You guys know what month it is right now, right? We're almost at Thanksgiving. That means December's right around the corner. That means January 1 is coming. You know what kicks in on January 1? Democrats and Bob Ferguson's stupid idea that now striking workers here in Washington get unemployment payment from your taxpayer dollars. So now you have taken away the only leverage that any corporation had, which is if they're not getting paid, eventually they want to come back to work because not working means they don't get paid. Now you've taken that away because now you're paying them with our taxpayer dollars. She has been a pivotal figure in advancing social and economic justice for public sector. Okay. All right. I want to hear more about this powerhouse of people she's got, because right now it's a whole bunch of radical lefties. Tiffany McCoy. Is she the real McCoy? Co-executive director of House of Our Neighbors, has been a strong advocate for social housing and climate action. Woo! All right. More government-owned housing. That's going to fix everything. And climate action, because anything they've done here to stop climate change has only made our carbon emissions worse. How about you start with dealing with the homeless guys? How about you start there? Seattle residents deserve access to stable, affordable homes. Highlighting a need for coordinated approach to housing. You mean you just want to use our tax dollars to buy more houses for the drug addicts? Is that what you mean? I'm seeing a track record of failure here. Who's this powerhouse? Quan Pham. Let's see who this one is. Executive Director of Friends of Little Saigon. Focuses on supporting small businesses and fostering community-driven solutions. Her work has significantly impacted local policy and BIPOC initiatives. Okay, I need to explain something to the business experts here. It's nice that you want to help small business, but if your policies are chasing away small business, the Amazon workers you chase away, they used to go to grocery stores. They used to go to barbershops. They used to go to local stores. They used to go to bars. They used to go to nightclubs. They used to go to restaurants. Look at South Lake Union. It's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. I was driving down 4th Avenue today. Mike, I was counting as I was driving how many stores were open. I didn't even get that far. Most things aren't even there anymore. For a lease, boarded up, for a lease, boarded up. There's nobody there on a weekday. There's nobody around. Yeah, well done. How is Little Saigon these days, by the way? How is Little Saigon? Yeah, it's doing great. Last but certainly not least, we've got, what's this guy's name right here? We've got Brian Surratt. Okay, who's Brian Surratt? President CEO of Greater Seattle Partners, brings a wealth of experience in economic development and partnership cultivation. He has played a key role in major city projects, including the development of Climate Pledge Arena. Okay, Climate Pledge Arena wasn't paid for by the taxpayers. So a little optimism there. For those of you who say, Ari, it's always bad news with you. Okay, I will dig more into this guy. Guaranteed there's a reason she picked him and it wasn't for the business. We'll find something on this guy. Just watch. We will find it. That's Katie Wilson's team. Now, mind you, this is the transition team who normally become players in the actual cabinet, in the actual administration. We'll see what other winners she manages to pick. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a quick call from Ron in Tacoma. Ron, running out of time. What's going on, man?
Yeah, I'm just curious here. I've been hearing all this stuff about Epstein again, and I'm just wondering why no one's bringing up the 211 Democrat politicians that were colluding to protect Mr. Epstein.
Did we do this yesterday, Ron? Ron, we did a whole segment on this yesterday where literally what we talked about was how the Democrats were going to rue the day they released all this stuff, because then you're going to find out that he was donating to, the last time I checked, 89% Democrats. And we found out already that one of those Congress ladies was taking his texts while she was questioning a witness because he wanted to get to Trump. I don't think this is going to reveal what the Democrats wanted to reveal. I think it's going to backfire horribly. Look, we already found out Hakeem Jeffries was hitting him up for money, even though he knew he was a sex offender at the time. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, speaking of Jeffrey Epstein, Representative Michael Baumgartner was there for the vote yesterday. He's going to give us the eyewitness account of what happened and also talk about how the Democrats' shutdown is affecting the economy. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Remember, if you missed any part of the show, you should always download the KVI app and subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way, you never miss a minute of the show. Well, there's a whole bunch of activity happening in Congress over the last 48 hours, especially regarding the vote about the Epstein files. Joining us now to discuss, Representative Michael Baumgartner from our very own Washington State. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Ari. It's always great to be on your show.
Great to have you here, sir. So let's start with the vote yesterday. The vote, pretty straightforward. Seemed like everybody was in favor of it. But then we find out that Democrat members of Congress were texting with Jeffrey Epstein even after they knew what was going on. In fact, during congressional hearings, they were texting with him. Some were even soliciting him for donations. And it didn't seem like it was such unanimous consent on censuring them or doing anything about that behavior. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, it is outrageous and shameful behavior on the part of the Democrat member that was texting in real time with Jeffrey Epstein during a congressional hearing back in 2019, after Jeffrey Epstein was a known sex trafficker, and that this Democrat member of Congress was texting to work with Jeffrey Epstein to line up questions as a way to target the Trump administration and Republicans. I think it's outrageous. I think this member should be ashamed. And the fact that the Democrats have been cynically exploiting this terrible Jeffrey Epstein situation for pure political gains and try to play partisan politics, I think is shameful. I think it's disrespectful to victims of sexual assault, victims of sexual trafficking. And I think they should apologize. And this member should be investigated. So very, very, very shameful.
Yeah, and I don't think most people knew this member's name even before any of this happened. And what a way to make a splash where now this is what you're going to be known for. So now it heads to President Trump's desk. He said he's going to sign it. Do you expect any speed bumps along the way? Do you think this might be the kind of thing where Democrats are going to wish they hadn't made such a big deal about it? It kind of reminds me of the time I didn't have my homework done in class, and my teacher asked to see it. And then I said, well, here's the homework, but it was yesterday's homework. And then they finally take a look at it and realize, oh, man, I already didn't have his homework in the first place, and I lost that bet. Do you think it's something like that with the Democrats?
Well, I have personally always been in favor of as much transparency as possible with the Epstein situation. I continue to have concerns of why Epstein was given a sweetheart deal back in 2006. All these connections he had to people like Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, the president of Harvard, and the money that he seems to be involved with. There's a lot we don't know, but what we do know is that if the Democrats had the ability to drag President Trump into this, they would have done it while Joe Biden had these documents for over 4 years. And so that hasn't happened. The Democrats were frustrated that Republicans were making so much progress in Congress, lowering taxes, taking steps to grow the economy, and they tried to make political issues out of this. And so I expect that the president will do what he said he was going to do, which is release as much of the information as he can. Now, the only challenge to that is that you need to make sure that innocent victims of sexual trafficking, that shouldn't be further punished, don't have their names dragged through the mud in things like, if there's child porn and that kind of things that can't be released. So I think the administration will deal with it appropriately. And do I think it will stop the Democrats from trying to play politics with this? No, I don't. But as you pointed out, we had a Democrat member actually texting with Jeffrey Epstein. We had Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries. Apparently his fundraising firm was soliciting donations from Jeffrey Epstein even after he was convicted of sex trafficking. So there's just a lot here that's not great, and they should be ashamed of how they've been dealing with it politically.
I completely agree. We're talking with Representative Michael Baumgartner from our very own Washington State. And it's amazing to me that now all of a sudden the Democrats care about human trafficking when they didn't care about the border for God knows how long. They don't care about what's going on in Seattle, in the homeless encampments. They don't care about any of that. Switching gears over to what we originally booked this for before all the excitement in Congress was the impacts the shutdown is going to have on the economy. And you look at the money that was taken out of the economy because so many people weren't getting paid and so many people couldn't spend the money and they were really pinching pennies to get by. So what kind of impact is that going to have on the economy? We're looking at what's happening with the stock market right now. It doesn't look like great indicators right now.
Well, the shutdown certainly was not great for the country. It was shameful again what the Democrats did. Hurt a lot of folks. Hurt folks that were worried about making mortgage payments. If you're in the military or you're an air traffic controller, those people had flights delayed. Fortunately, we've got it back open up again, at least until January. We are still trying to work a bipartisan budget agreement. I'm proud of the budgets that we did pass, had important fundings for people in my district and things like Wash State University and for Fairchild Air Force Base. We're going to continue to work those issues. But we've made so much progress this year in Congress in terms of lowering taxes, reducing regulation. As Republicans, we've had more expansion of American energy production than any time in history. So there's a lot of great things going on that are going to help the American consumer and make life more affordable. What we need to do in Washington State is we need to get some help from Olympia. The Bob Ferguson and the Democrats in Olympia continue to do things of increasing taxes, increasing regulation that limit the ability to build houses, make it more costly to build roads, and increase prices. So Washington State has become one of the most expensive places in the country to live because of that high tax and regulatory burden. So the federal government is doing its part. We now need the state government and local lawmakers in Washington State to do their part to bring costs down.
I was shocked when I was in New York a few weeks ago for a family celebration, and I saw that the gas prices there were half of what they are in Washington, another blue state. And once you know that energy costs go up, then everything else goes up. That's why groceries high. But try explaining that to the average Washingtonian who just keeps voting blue, at least on the western side of the state where I'm from. So how do you get through on a messaging angle like what you just said? We have a real problem. President Trump is bringing down gas prices nationally. Republicans are working to make sure that prices are coming down. They're trying to control the spending. And we got this issue in Olympia. How do we get that message to Washingtonians?
Well, it's a challenge. Of course, I'm a conservative and a Republican and a Coug from Washington State, so I'm a born optimist. You got to try to be a happy warrior. I think to some extent, those of us that believe in the free market need to keep plugging away and need to refine our message to those elections where we can win. Obviously, I'm not a far left liberal from Seattle, and I don't understand why they would vote for Katie Wilson, but that seems to be the direction they want to go, and we'll see how it works out for them. I would like Seattle to do well. It's important for the entire state that if Seattle has a growing economy, and it's important for the entire state if there's a sense that Seattle is safe and it's downtown and people want to visit. But you can only control what you can control in this business. And of course, what I do for the people of Eastern Washington is fight every day to make things more affordable and to make sure that we're leaving our kids and our grandkids a safe and secure and growing opportunity for the American dream like we've all enjoyed. But it wasn't that long ago that I was in the state Senate. And as recent as 2017, Republicans controlled the state Senate, and our state was a lot better off. We never had the governor, we never had the House, but just having that one body had a lot better governance. And we need to continue to find good candidates to support them, and win elections. And so, these things can change, and we'll stay with it. But it's interesting. I was just talking to some business folks from North Idaho, and oftentimes I think Jay Inslee and Bob Ferguson were the greatest, the North Idaho Economic Development Commission, because people do have choices, and we'll see how Katie Wilson works out, for the rest of the state. We do want Seattle to do well, so I'm not. I'd rather have them have good governance than have Schadenfreude for making bad decisions. But we need to just continue staying at it, because you and I know the ideas of limited government and competition and the free market are what creates prosperity, and we need to continue to advocate those messages to the voters, the people of Washington State.
Well, maybe if Seattle's not safe, we can move the World Cup on over to your side of the state. I'm sure the Cougars would love to host the game. I think that would be a lot of action for them.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, it's interesting with this administration. Washington State government is doing a number of things that make it challenging for taxpayers across the country. When Washington State, as a sanctuary state, it not only makes it more dangerous for people in our state when a criminal element, and you can have potentially people we don't know whether they're safe or not being into the country. That makes it less safe for us, but it also increases costs for the entire country. So I think it's appropriate for the rest of the country to have some frustrations with what goes on in Washington State. But by that same token, I'm always trying to navigate those things between the administration and our state, because I want to make sure that my voters are protected. And so it takes takes some time out of my day to work those issues. And I would, again, like on the sanctuary state issue, it would be better for everybody if law enforcement speaks with each other and works together. Again, the number one finding of the 9/11 Commission after those terrible terrorist attacks, the number one recommendation is that law enforcement needs to work together. And when you have these dangerous sanctuary state policies that essentially inhibit law enforcement from speaking with each other, it really increases danger from all of us. And so it would be good if Washington State reversed course and took the president at his word to improve some of the things that need to happen to make sure that the World Cup comes off in a safe and successful manner.
Congressman Michael Baumgartner, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for working so hard on behalf of all of us in Washington, even those on the other side of the state. Really do appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, Ari. You do a great job. It's always wonderful to be on your show.
Thanks. Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, check out the brand new KVI.com. There you'll get exclusive content like our movie review of The Running Man. Plus, I'll have a new article, an exclusive coming out soon about the person who oversees police in King County. It's going to be a doozy. And we're going to see what the new King County exec, Gurmay Zahalai, will actually do with this. We'll go to the Warrior Injury Law text line. This one is Mike from Puyallup. He says, I would like to know the member of Congress who had Epstein's personal cell phone number to text them in the first place. Funny you should mention that. Have it right here. So we talked about her yesterday. This is Delegate Stacey Plaskett from the Virgin Islands. You may never have heard of her. You may not have even known that the Virgin Islands get a delegate. It's a non-voting position in Congress, but yes,
because guess where Jeffrey Epstein's island was? Her excuse was, he's a constituent. He's a constituent. I see. We did this yesterday where Mike and I were joking about whose cell phone numbers we have, whose cell phone numbers we don't have. I'm not texting members of Congress on the floor. There are sometimes I wish I could just text them up and be like, ask him this question, ask him this question. Somebody who's smart isn't going to be having their cell phone during that time because they're going to be paying attention to what's going on in Congress. Jeff and Kent talking about our earlier story about 4th Avenue being abandoned. He says 4th Avenue in Seattle is a ghost town. 3rd Avenue, zombie town. Not wrong about that. Not at all. Randy, talking about the sex offenders earlier, says, I'm all for reducing jail time. That's why we need to bring back the death penalty and use it. Very good. Very clever. But if you want any of these things done, what do you really need? You need to change who's in office. So we know the Department of Justice asked Oregon, Washington, plenty of other blue states that do all vote by mail, said, hey, can you turn over those voting records to us? Can you kind of do that? We would really, really like that because we want to make sure that everybody who's voting is supposed to be voting. Well, now secretaries of state from 10 states sent a joint letter yesterday to Attorney General Pam Bondi and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem seeking clarification about recent federal requests for statewide voter registration and the manner in which the information is being used. So they claim they're concerned about misleading and contradictory statements from the DOJ and the Department of Homeland Security regarding the collection and sharing of voter information. In the letter, the secretary said that in recent months, each of their states received requests from the DOJ for full voter registration lists. In some instances, the federal government sought unredacted data, including dates of birth, driver's licenses, and the last 4 digits of Social Security numbers. The secretary has called the scope of those requests unprecedented and said they need to know how the federal government intend to use, secure, and distribute such information. Now, what they plan to do with it, guys, you know they have all this information, right? They want to know who's voting, though. So, for example, the IRS has all this information. Department of Homeland Security has all the information on who should be here legally or not. They just want to know who's on your voter rolls. Who do you have on that? You remember we had our friend Glenn Morgan on the show not too long ago talking about how at least a third of voters in Washington state are missing key data points, that he did a full analysis of multiple counties and found that the data's missing. Do you think that Steve Hobbs is worried about our data breaches or data security? Or do you think that Steve Hobbs is worried that the feds are going to confirm what Glenn Morgan said? That the majority, or excuse me, 1/3 of these people are missing data fields. How do you get to register to vote if you're missing data? You don't get a car driver's license if you're missing data. My daughter, if she didn't have her birth certificate with her, or she didn't have her passport with her or whatever, doesn't get the driver's license. So how do you get registered to vote if there are missing data points? What do these guys have to hide? You think I'm being overly paranoid, or you think I'm right on the mark? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, Washington's budget crisis, and worse than we ever knew. And what are we spending the money on? We'll tell you about how bad it is when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour, free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Trump gives a speech on global warming. Jay Inslee was probably really upset about it. But before we get to any of that, we go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Mike in Puyallup. Mike, what's going on?
Greetings, Ari. I've got a interesting little idea. It's always made me mad thinking about the percentage of voters that turn out. I think we had 40% this year,
maybe something like that. It was pretty bad,
and they call it successful. Okay,
yeah.
So what my concept is, the other 60% that don't vote. If you don't vote, and if you don't vote for a period of time, well, I don't know. 4 years. Let's just say 4 years. Your voter registration is canceled, just like your driver's license. I get a driver's license; it's good for 6 years. And if I don't drive a car, well, I don't know why I have a driver's license. If I'm not going to vote, why do I have a voting registration? And then every 4 years, you get, hey, it's time to re-register. We're sending this registration out to your last known address. We want you to update it. Okay. And mail it back in, and then you're registered for another 4 years.
I think you might have some constitutional. I think you might have some constitutional issues with that, but I don't disagree. Instead, there's other ways you could do it. You know what you do? Every year you send out something, even an email. Well, actually, don't do email. Don't draw them the electric road. But you send out something that says, "Can you verify your information? We have an election coming up." Right? Can you verify your information? It shouldn't be that hard. Just send that out and see what happens. Right?
Well, that may be right. If people want to, like I said, if they wanted to participate, fine. If not, like I said, if the voter registration, just like your driver's license, just like even your passport, hey, it's got this right to have a passport, but hey, that sucker expires, don't it?
It does. Okay. I'll tell you what. Let's put this out. Let's put this out to the phone lines, okay, guys? If you like Mike's idea, or if you have a variation of it. You give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. There you go. See, we're all about voter participation here on the show.
Everyone. I want everybody to vote. I don't care how you vote. I just want you to vote.
Exactly.
And I only want you to vote once.
Well, here's something else. How many of those votes are going to people who don't live in state anymore? I have people tell me all the time they are still getting ballots for their kids who have told the elections people that they moved out of state. Mike, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to weigh in on Mike's proposal or you got one of your own, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Stilgar in Redmond. Stilgar, what's going on?
Oh, Ari. Well, I was just thinking about how the sanctuary states, how they're bending over backwards to try to protect the illegal immigrants by doing things like turning flock cameras off, for example, in Redmond. And I wonder how much of this thing with Steve Hobbs in the voter rolls is him trying to protect illegals, which isn't that a tacit admission that there are illegals on the rolls?
That's what I would say. I would say, what are you hiding? The best way for Steve Hobbs to shut up Ari Hoffman is to turn it all over, and then when they find no problems with it, go, told you so, told you so, told you so. If the Democrats want to be done with all the voter fraud conspiracies, after a Trump administration would sign off on that, we would all back off of it except for the really, really crazy people. The only reason they aren't doing it is because, and this is what my assumption is, here's something else, Stilgar. I don't think I told anybody this yet, okay? I reached out to Steve Hobbs' office for an interview. I haven't even heard back yet. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they're not even getting back to us? He could come on the show and he could say, here's what the real problems are, and I'm going to say what I know to be problems. And what's he going to say? We know what he's going to say, and he doesn't want to come on the show because we're actually going to get him to admit that our voting system is not secure. Stilgar, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I see a lot of people are worried about election security, about voter registration. Just found this out, by the way, last night. Neat Grewal. You remember she ran for city council out in Kent? She is running an event with Scott Pressler on Thursday night. That's on Thursday night in Kent. That's going to be at 520 Washington Avenue, and she just asked me to be there as well. It's going to be from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So as soon as the show is over, I'm hopping in my car. I'm going to take the Batmobile that night. I'm going to get down there as fast as I can down to Kent. I should be there probably sometime between 6:45 and 7, but that's at 520 Washington Avenue South. That's going to be in Kent tomorrow night from 5 to 8 p.m. Scott Pressler's going to be there. Neek Grewal's going to be there. I'm going to be there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you come on down. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take another call from Susie in Fremont. Susie, what's going on?
Hey, well, needless to say, I came back from a trip to Maui, and everybody is saying, what the hell happened? Anyway,
Susie, I recognize your voice. You should have stayed in Maui. Well, actually, Hawaii's no better than Washington. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't want to be voting over there either. But your friend Mike that called in is right. When we used to have absentee ballots, you had to renew them every 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing unconstitutional or anything else about that. When you're getting a ballot by mail, asking somebody to re-up whether they're still at that address, and if that is still their signature and whatnot, there's nothing illegal about that. We're not doing it. And we're also not tracking these ones that are getting driver's licenses and are not necessarily should be voting, but the county is now sending them out ballots kind of like no matter what.
Yeah.
They don't have to say they want a ballot. They don't even have to say they're a citizen.
Here's something I don't get, Susie.
Sending them out because they got the address.
Right. Here's something I don't get. Walk this through with me for a second. If they verify who should be on the voter rolls and who shouldn't be on the voter rolls, you know what they're going to find? There's a ton of these homeless people who are registered who aren't voting. There's tons of doubles on there. And you know what will happen? They get to say after that, our participation in voting went up. Because think of how many ballots they have out there right now that nobody's actually returning.
Oh, yeah, but they're going out and collecting them, and they're going out and collecting them when they realize they need more votes. This has been going on now, at least in Seattle, for quite a while. And like we had 350 people voted from the Compass Center down in South Lake Union, and there's 50 beds. And nobody lives there. It's a shelter.
Susie, can you send me the information you have on that? I would love to see that information.
Well, I'll send you what I've got. The point is, the problem is there's no one that in the King County records and elections that wants to find out whether they are doing it right or not, because they've had lots of offers. Obviously, you send things through Social Security and you find out who's dead. You send things through the post office and you find out who still lives at that address. You send things through Homeland Security and you find out who's a citizen. It is not hard.
Yep.
But they need to do it. And they need to do it and clean the rolls every time, because we're doing nothing but mail out ballots. They really aren't absentees. Absentees have much more controls on them than this does.
Exactly. And maybe if Steve Hobbs wasn't at gaming conferences in Germany while all this was going on, somebody might actually be overseeing our elections. But I'm sure he just wanted to play, Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons or whatever other Settlers of Catan. I'm sure he was very, very excited to do all that.
Well, he just flat out didn't want to be here answering for the problem.
Oh, that's why he hasn't gotten back to me yet. He's still at the gaming convention. Susie, appreciate the call. Good to hear your voice.
You bet.
Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. A lot of support for Mike's idea on the text line, by the way, and now Susie's idea as well. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Rick in Bothell. Rick, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, it's been a long time since we actually voted in person, but I seem to recall that I'd walk into the school gymnasium and they'd have a table and there'd be somebody sitting there with a ledger book, and they showed my ID and they looked me up and they'd show me the page in the book that had my name and address on it, and they say, "Is this you? Is this where you still live?" And I signed my name on it, and I got to go vote.
Yeah, they don't do that no more. I remember when I first moved here. So the first vote I had was what, 2004, I think it was. And they said, I think that was when you had the choice between going in person or the mail-in ballots. I think that's when we were still doing that. I remember I wanted to vote in person. So I went to the school and I get there and they hand me the ballot to fill in with a pen. It was the most disappointing thing ever because in New York, you get the very satisfying lever you get to pull, the chunk on the machine. And I thought this didn't measure up at all. But yeah, I mean, for years I was getting ballots for dead people at my address. I'm shocked I still don't get those things anymore. Rick, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from James in SeaTac. James, what's going on, man?
Hey, how are we doing? I got two things. A couple elections ago, I got two ballots. I filled out both of them. I signed a different signature on one of them and a legit signature on another one. They both counted. It was a while ago. I checked them. They both counted.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
No, it was funny, though. But I said, let's see what happens. But the idea, I heard it from one of your counterparts on KVI. It's all I listen to. Is years ago, why don't we use the ATM thing? You have an ATM card. You go to the ATM. You log in. It's only live for just that one day, maybe 2 days. You have a special ATM card. You click vote. You do your ballot. When it's done, it gets total instantly. You have. If I look at my bank account right now, I know my exact total within 10 seconds.
Right. How about a library card? How about a library card? They know what I got, an outstanding library book, even something simple like that. How about a Safeway card? We could even do with that system. It doesn't even have to be as complicated as an ATM card. But yeah, there's any number of things we could do that are more secure than what we are doing right now, and we're not doing any of them. James, appreciate the call.
Well,
appreciate you listening to KVI. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And elections have consequences, my friends. So Katie Wilson's going to be in charge around here. That means socialism. Now we get the socialist experiment coast to coast. I wonder how that's going to work out. Bill Maher actually addressed this on his show on Friday night.
Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's Socialism for the 21st Century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century, or any century, a f***ing mess. It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening. Zoran can't make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar.
Ah, yes, the machine from Big. I want to be big. Just unplug the thing. Works every time. Actually, that amusement park was actually near my house growing up. That's Rye Playland, for those of you who know the New York area. But he's 100% right. What's going to happen with socialism? Eventually, you run out of other people's money. You want a case in point of where that happened? Here in Washington State. We got back the latest numbers, and now there's a $1 billion budget gap. Why? It's the Laffer curve. You finally reached the point where people don't want to pay taxes anymore, so they are out of here. They're not going to pay them. Companies left town. They were counting on somebody like Jeff Bezos' money. Well, Jeff Bezos picked up and left town. So you don't have that $300 million or whatever it was in taxes you were going to get from Jeff Bezos. And Amazon leaving town. What happened to Seattle? Massive budget gap because they were counting on the money from that head tax, and instead people just moved their companies out of the area. Do you think they're coming back? They don't just go, oh, well, you got a normal council member for 1 year. We're going to come back. Absolutely not. They just go. Amazon warned Seattle before the 2019 elections. If you guys do this, we are out of here. And since then, they've been slowly leaving. Boeing has been leaving since long before that. Company after company is going to keep leaving, and they ain't going to come back afterwards. So you're going to have a lot of rebuilding to do. Are they actually going to do it? They keep spending on stupid. They keep spending money they don't have. They keep trying to redistribute wealth, and it ain't working. It ain't working at all. Katie Wilson's going to try the same thing that's been failing in the Washington State Legislature. One of my biggest knocks against the so-called moderate Seattle City Council is they were never actually moderate. I love how the left, people like the Stranger, kept saying, our conservative city council. No! If they were conservative, they might have repealed some of the stuff that's causing businesses to leave. If they were conservative, they might have actually done an audit of Homeless Inc. They never did any of that kind of stuff. No, we've been living under Kshama Sawant's socialism for a long time now, and it hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out at all. It's only gone progressively, yes, pun intended, worse. Look what they did in the Washington State Legislature. We know how this experiment is going to end, and yet Seattle did it to themselves. We know how this ends because it ends this way every single time. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, our friend Travis Couture will be joining us from the Washington State Legislature. Tell us how bad this budget gap is and what we can do to fix it. But before we get to any of that, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Well, my friends, we knew this was coming. In fact, I'm not even sure we're at the final stage yet, but now Bob Ferguson is finally admitting, hey, we got a budget gap even after we passed the largest tax increase in state history. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line to break it down, Representative Travis Couture, who is the House Republican budget lead. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on again, Ari.
No problem whatsoever. Always a pleasure. So let's talk about this. He's got a new number out. I don't even care about the number itself because I know it's going to change 10 times before the actual legislative cycle begins. What's your assessment of this?
Yeah, I mean, so for you and your listeners, what the true number is right now after yesterday's Economic Revenue Forecast Council meeting was basically just a little over $1 billion. And as we get more caseload information, as we get a little bit closer to session, I expect that could fluctuate between $1 and $3 billion. Now, the Democrats are already doing the same dog and pony show as they did last time and claiming it's $6, $7, $8 billion as a deficit number. And so that's what they use to justify new taxes. But what we see once again is that despite the fact that we have record revenues in Washington state and a record budget too, almost $80 billion budget, what we see is the revenue starting to kind of slow down towards reality. And a lot of it is policy driven. Sales tax, B&O tax, use tax collections, real estate, housing permit fees collected, and all those other things all came down lower than expected once again. And we've been predicting this all year long. But, you know, honestly, Ari, when families can't afford everyday life and employers can't afford to stay open, the state revenue just falls apart. It's a classic Laffer curve. When you've taxed too much, you start seeing diminishing returns. And that's exactly what we're seeing here today.
So I assume that the Democrats are going to say, hey, you know what, let's put some more taxes on that to solve the problem. Are they even looking at any cuts? Because we know Bob Ferguson, the only cuts he made were to essential services, no actually meaningful cuts to the nonsense. He cut essential services like Medicaid, Medicare so that he could keep the non-essential things. Are they talking about anything real this time, or is it just more taxes?
Well, what's interesting, Ari, is that as you go into a short session, by law, the governor cannot propose a budget that includes new revenues. And so he has to produce a cut budget this time around due to the deficit. However, the devil's in the details. Just because he has to propose that does not mean that's what Democrats have to do. And you see the tax queen herself, Noelle Frame, talking about a new income tax, a new wealth tax, and all these other things. So just because the governor must propose a no revenue and no tax budget going into the short session here does not mean that's what Democrats have in mind. And they have in mind more taxes. As a result, what's really interesting is you start to hear probably a mixture of some spending cuts, some new taxes. Of course, we've already been taxed to the hilt, and that's what's the big problem with our revenue starting to drop. It's so bad right now that even Moody's is rating us at near or already in a recession here in Washington state, when our neighbors just to the east in Idaho are completely thriving. And so this is a self-made recession made by Democrats and radical socialist policies that they've passed over the last handful of years and continue to do so. I mean, when you pass rent control, when you increase the document recording fee to astronomical highest in the nation prices, and you've basically crushed the ability for industry to work. You can't build homes and dig yourself out of a housing crisis, and you don't get revenue back either. And so we don't have a revenue problem in Washington. We have a spending problem, and we are outpacing spending way over our revenue right now, and it just keeps projecting to get worse and worse and worse. And so what we need is a no new tax budget that gives relief to taxpayers and starts cutting the wasteful spending. But I have almost zero confidence that they will really tackle that. They won't ever touch their sacred cows. For example, we spend just this biennium to over $250 million on illegal immigrant health care alone. And if you were to pour that money, which I plan to do, back into our state Medicaid that they cut, you would almost replenish all of the Medicaid cuts that they did. And that would actually benefit our own citizens here who are low income or disabled. And it's prioritizing the budget, it's prioritizing your spending for the essential needs, and then getting rid of the junk drawer of all the other things that we don't need, like a community reinvestment program that is absolutely corrupt to its core. That's about $100 million by itself, Ari.
Yeah, exactly. And we're talking with Representative Travis Couture. And when you talk about this Moody's analysis, which I looked at also, if Washington's in a recession, and this is a good opportunity to re-educate everybody what a word recession actually means, it's when there's a downturn in economic activity. When you tax people, they save their money for taxes. They don't spend it on the economy. And if that's the case, the money's not going into the economy, causing a recession. So around here in Washington, they want to make things worse by taxing us worse for failed programs, for fraudulent programs, for wasteful programs. And it seems to be that's the only thing they know how to do rather than actually look at these programs and go, hey, they're an absolute disaster.
Right. I mean, good family wage. One of the biggest things the biggest shocker, I think, of this economic forecast was that we project to add 0 jobs. Let me repeat that. 0 jobs in Washington in 2026. That is an all-time historic low. You could go back decades and decades, even back to the 2008 housing crash, and it's still not that bad. So that's pretty bad, but you look across the country, and even in that Moody's analysis, and you see other states are doing just fine. It's the blue states who are suffering, or purple states with big blue cities in them, where the socialist policies of the left right now are driving our economy into the tank. So we're losing. Some of the jobs that we're losing in this state are ones we absolutely need. Critical manufacturing and construction jobs, which are family wage, oftentimes union jobs, and those are disappearing because those industries are moving to friendlier states where it's friendlier to build and friendlier to work. But the larger picture is that our economy is stagnating, housing permits are collapsing, and affordability in this state keeps getting worse. And people are suffering. They suffer when they pull up to fill up their gas tank with $5, maybe $6 gasoline in this state. They suffer at the grocery store because of all the taxes that have been levied. They struggle paying their mortgage or their rent because of things like rent control and all the other different things that Democrats have passed lately. And Lori Jenkins, the Speaker of the House, yesterday wrote that it's all Republicans' fault. Well, last I checked, you've been in charge for 40 years. And Lori Jenkins' record all across the state, anything from gas, groceries, rent, insurance, child care, you name it, crime, is absolutely the worst record in all of the states in the nation, and some of the worst in Washington state history. So I don't really know what she's gaslighting or talking about. She's the one who cut $782 million from Medicaid. They haven't cut a single red penny as a result of the One Big Beautiful Bill at the federal level in Washington state right now. They passed a PEB-SEB, which is a reference-based pricing bill for healthcare and hospitals, a bill that will raise premiums by $1,200 or more a year on families. And that is actually the biggest pain to hospitals in our medical system right now and to people on the ground. So I just don't know what Lori Jenkins, what world she lives in. I guess if you don't have anything left, you just lie about everything and gaslight everybody else. But the reality on the ground is Democrats have been in charge for 40 straight years here. That's longer than the Israelites were lost in the wilderness, Ari. And I'll just tell you that, people are suffering right now, and it's not Republicans who have been making the decisions. We've been fighting back. We tried to fix Medicaid. We tried to give sales tax relief. We even tried to give a one-time sales tax holiday for back-to-school supplies. I mean, we tried everything, and all we asked in return is to cut the things we don't need, like lavish amounts of employees at our higher education institutions where there's rarely any enrollment nowadays, and also things like big, expensive DEI programs which are racist and do nothing to elevate the people of Washington State, where we spend millions upon millions upon millions of dollars on those things, and we wanted to shuffle that money back into places that are the most meaningful to the most Washingtonians, things that we need: public safety, safe streets, more cops, actually streets that are paved for once, and transportation projects that get done, and you name it. But we're going in the absolutely wrong direction. But what I'll say is I see a lot of people, and I know you do too, Ari, where people want to move out of this state because it's so bad. And I totally understand that, but we're close to something good here. Once the pendulum has swung too far to the left, which it has, it's only one place left to go, and that's to swing back to the right. People have to have hope. That's why we see people like you and Scott Pressler and others out there trying to deliver that message of hope. We need Republicans to vote. Had Republicans who voted for Donald Trump showed up to vote in this last election, we would have ended a supermajority in Olympia and elected Michelle Caldier and Chad Manganaz. But Republicans didn't show up because they feel so hopeless right now. I'm just here to tell you that there is hope. This can be fixed. It will be fixed, but it's a team effort, and everyone has to show up and do their part. And if you think the system is rigged, well, guess what? They don't even have to rig it if you don't vote.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's going on right now. Representative Travis Couture, thank you so much for your analysis of the situation and for the encouragement for all of us who think there's no hope. Of course, there always is. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, buddy. See you later.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way, you never miss a minute of the show. Remember to rate and share that way, so that way your friends will also get to enjoy the show as well. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Corey in Bellevue. Corey, what's going on, man?
Hey, Ari, I listen to you so often because you're so often correct. However, you are badly mistaken. Democrats and other leftists have been incredibly successful at transferring money. They've transferred billions and billions of dollars from productive people to themselves, other grifters, and their cronies. The amount of money that we have seen go from productive things to things like Homeless Inc. or someone like Dow Constantine is mind-boggling. Think of how much we paid to, say, have the roads improved or an overpass fixed or things like that. The amount of money has increased dramatically, and that's not going to the workers who are doing the job. It's going to bureaucrats overseeing needless things and other costs that have been layered on so money can be diverted to their pet projects and not to things that the taxpayers need or want.
Hang on a second. Hang on a second. I'll let you finish, Corey. Hang on. I'm going to let you finish, like Kanye West style.
Sure.
I'm going to let you finish. But how am I wrong on this? Because wasn't that what I was saying the whole episode today?
Yes, but they're transferring a lot of money. They're just not transferring to the right locations.
Okay, all right. So I'm not wrong. Okay, I'm just making sure we're on the same page here. Okay, my track record of always being right continues. Okay, continue, Corey.
Yeah, all I'm saying is we really need to see some political change here, or we're not going to get the necessary things that we need done. I mean, look at how much it costs to build a house now to what it did in the 1990s.
Well, forget the inflation for a second. Do you know that Seattle just raised the prices for construction permits? If they're trying to encourage building, that ain't going to do it. Now, mind you, if you're spending a lot of money building a house or building an apartment, I don't think it's the permit fees that are going to get you, but it's just one more cost on top of everything else.
It's not the rate of inflation. If you just took the rate of inflation, the prices to build, not to buy a home, because you can argue there are market forces there, the cost to build a home has gone up far more than the cost of inflation.
Oh, yeah.
And that is because requirements, it's regulations. It's not just the permits. It's all the regulations that aren't designed. We need some regulation, obviously. It's the ones that are deliberately put into the process with the purpose of diverting money, of transferring money to the pet projects of these leftists. That's criminal.
Yes, and that's exactly what they're doing. So you said market forces before regarding the houses, right? Well, here's the thing. Let's say I want to renovate a house, right? And you want to buy a house. But then I find out I can't renovate my house because of all these ridiculous regulations that they have. So now I'm going to be competing against you to buy a house, which means the houses are more in demand because it's harder and harder to build. And that's one of the many things affecting the housing market around here. Corey, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Yeah, if people were allowed to build more, then actually what you would see happening is you wouldn't have as much competition for upgrading. They'd be able to build what they have. I'm very lucky that I bought a house where I was able to upgrade it. So it is now at this point, my kids leaving the house, it's even bigger than I need it to be. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Paul in Puyallup. Paul, what's up, man?
Hey, just getting back from Idaho. I heard the caller a couple times ago talking about everybody moving to Idaho. Well, you know what? I can confirm that. I had a great time for the last 3 or 4 days. They're building the biggest semiconductor plant in the world minus Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
This plant is like miles. It's a city that basically they're going to bring in anyone and everyone that wants to work there, and boy, they're going to have tax dollars that help them. There is no problems in Idaho. I enjoy all the niceties that are over there, and let me tell you, I went this morning and bought my gas for $3.15. It's generally about $3.15 to $3.25. I got over the Washington line, and it was $3.90 and $4.10 when I turned on 18 to come home today.
Yeah.
So all these people that are doing that, and all the money's going to the homeless here. Over there, they do things that cause people to work.
Yes.
I want to also just let you know my son is a highway state patrol person. So I had the opportunity to go out there and ride around with him, called a ride along. And it was fun because you know what he does when he stops somebody on the road? He gives them a ticket and they have to pay it. Figure the odds.
Wait a second. Wait a second. You need to find out something for me, okay? We need to find out. You need to find out if Jay Inslee is living in Idaho on your next trip, okay? Because he said he wasn't, but we got to know if he moved over there to get away from Washington's bad policies.
Well, you know what? We can look that up, but I think he's in District 1. They have like 10 districts throughout the whole state of Idaho. But we will find that out for you, and we can find some other stuff out for you. But it was just a pleasure to be over there for a couple of days to get away from this. And you know what? It has taken me 1 hour and 15 minutes to go from 90-18 all the way to my house here in Puyallup because of the traffic. I want to leave that to you, and thank you very much. Please vote, because if you don't vote, you got to keep on up with this stuff.
Exactly.
They're giving the homeless all our money.
Exactly.
You know, the Democrats are just funneling money to everything, and they're raising our taxes.
Exactly.
Vote.
Exactly. You have to vote. You have to vote. And reminder to everybody that tomorrow night, that's right, tomorrow night, my friends, you want to come see me, I'm going to be out in Kent at the Elysian Event and Conference Center at 520 Washington Avenue with Scott Pressler. It's where LA Fitness used to be. He's going to be getting signatures so that people can get ID on the ballot, voter ID, so we can have that. Now, it starts at 5. I'm not going to be there till after the show, but it's from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Elysian Event Center. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Only good news to wrap up the show, my friends. Your good news headlines put a smile on your face heading into your evening commute. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And we start with some local good news, my friends. The Mariners are planning a year-long celebration for their 50th season this year. So the Seattle Mariners announced today that the franchise will mark its 50th season in 2026 with a year-long series of events, highlighted by a 3-day celebration weekend in August. The centerpiece of the anniversary will take place August 7th to 9th during a home series against the Tampa Bay Rays at T-Mobile Park. Is that going to conflict with Seafair? It depends on how the Seafair calendar lines up this year. Now I got to check. That because I kind of want to go to both. The club plans to honor the top 50 greatest Mariner players in a pregame ceremony on August 8th, part of a weekend schedule that will include additional activities and promotions that they will send out later. Now, some of the stuff they've already announced is that they're going to have a Kingdom Fanny Pack Hat Night on April 17th, a Cal Raleigh 70s Jersey Night. What, no big dumper cushions again? That was kind of funny. 70s Pin Day on April 19th, Randy Johnson 80s Jersey Night, Mariners 80s Pin, Julio Rodriguez 90s Jersey. I like all this kind of stuff they have. Of course, they've got the 2000s, the 2010s, 2020s, a collectible pin series honoring each decade will also include an additional exclusive pin available at KeyBank retail locations. Off the field, the team's annual Summer Soiree Gala on August 2nd will raise funds for the Mariners Care Foundation, with part of the proceeds contributing to a 50 Seasons legacy gift benefiting the Seattle community. Fans can already purchase gear marking the anniversary. The Mariners team store launched its 50 Seasons collection on Wednesday at T-Mobile Park and the downtown Seattle location on 4th Avenue and Stewart Street. The lineup includes commemorative apparel, caps, and baseballs, with additional items arriving throughout the holiday season and into next year. There's going to be even more announcements about this, but this is great. I love this kind of stuff. I really, really do. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, I'm actually reaching out to the 7-Line Army. Those are the fans that travel with the Mets, and since the Mets are coming here, I want to see what game they're going to because it'll be a zoo at that one because a bunch of New Yorkers taking up a whole section in the outfield. That'll be a lot of fun. So I'm excited. The Mets are coming to town. I'm excited for the 50th anniversary. Then there's this story that Mike sent over to me. Sizzler is making a comeback, which is rare in this industry. Tavern, the creative agency, that's attempting to help the steakhouse chain reinvent itself that faced an identity crisis and lost its way. Mike, you have to clue me in on what's going on here. Are we doing therapy for Sizzler now? Is that what this is all about?
Yes.
Okay, so the idea conceived in 1958 by Del and Helene Johnson of Culver City, California, is still alive, with Sizzler remodeling its current locations without changing the brand's core appeal, affordability, and casual dining atmosphere. You guys better be careful you don't do another Cracker Barrel here, or people might get mad about the Sizzler. Oh, no!
Where's the Sizzler guy? Justice for the Sizzler guy.
Is there a Sizzler guy?
There's no
Sizzler guy. Yeah.
People are just dumb.
Exactly. Their commercials always looked great, though. I remember watching them growing up. I'm like, I want that. Robert Clark, Sizzler's chief growth officer, said in a recent interview that the previous management group...
Now that's a job I'd like to have.
Wouldn't we all? Said the previous management group tried to take the chain in a different direction and just never worked. Our current leadership is much more focused on, hey, let's take the best of Sizzler and make it even better. At its peak in the 90s, Sizzler had 700 locations, but dwindling locations during the COVID-19 pandemic forced the chain to declare bankruptcy. The buffet went away, although the all-you-can-eat salad bar remains. Hey, you bring back a buffet, people are going to be happy. Isn't that why you go to places like this? There's a kosher Chinese place in New York that I used to go to on Monday nights because guess what they had that night? All-you-can-eat buffet. Guess what night I went to that Chinese place? For the all-you-can-eat buffet. There was a little brouhaha over my sister doing a takeout thing where it held most of it but didn't fully close, and they're like, you can't take that much food. And she's like, it said all you can fit in the container. It fits in the container. So there was a little brouhaha. So, anywho, I'm excited about this, even though I'm not going to get to eat at this place, just because I want those commercials to come back. I really, really do. Mike, am I blowing this up in my mind? Is this one of these places that is not that great? Okay. Everybody else is looking at like, Hoffman, it's not that good. You got to get past the Sizzler thing. To me, it always looked delicious. The chain is also trying to revive its iconic The Sizzler dish, which was phased out in the early 2000s. The meal featured a steak served on top of thick-cut fries and caramelized onions, along with a garlic demi-glaze. That sounds amazing. That sounds delicious. A buffet and the Sizzler? Holy cow, I've been missing out. That actually sounds really, really good. Well, that's going to do it for us today, my friends. But if you want to follow us on social media, make sure you do so at Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, The Hofffather over on Twitter. We'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more good news headlines. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.